69 million people. That is the number sitting inside today's active severe weather risk zone, stretching from Lake Erie all the way down through Texas. 69 million people under some level of threat today, ranging from isolated wind and hail in the northeast corner to a concentrated squall line tearing through the Mississippi Valley right now. This is the final act of a very active week for the central and eastern United States. And while a quiet period is coming early next week, what builds behind it in mid-April demands your attention before we get there. Let's start with what's happening today, because the timing on this matters. A squall line, an organized line of thunderstorms, is pushing southeast out of Texas. It originated near the Dallas-Fort Worth area earlier today and has been racing toward Waco and Shreveport. The primary hazard along this line is damaging winds, 60 to 65 miles per hour, widespread, covering a large swath of the Mississippi Valley. Nashville, Memphis, Little Rock, Shreveport. These are the cities sitting directly in the path of this system today. This is not a tornado-focused threat in the southern tier. It is a wind threat, but 65-mile-per-hour straight-line winds from a fast-moving squall line can produce damage that looks very similar to a weak tornado on the ground. Trees down, power lines across roads, structural damage to buildings that were not built to withstand that kind of sustained force. If you are in any of these cities today, when the line approaches, get inside, away from windows, away from trees. By the time this line reaches central Mississippi and western Alabama in the afternoon and evening, it will be losing its organization and falling apart. The threat diminishes significantly east of the Mississippi River, but do not dismiss the line until it has cleared your area entirely. Now, the separate and specifically dangerous element of today's forecast is not in the south. It is to the north, along Lake Erie. A 2% hatch tornado risk is active right now in a zone running from Fort Wayne, Indiana, through Columbus and Cleveland in Ohio, up to Buffalo, New York. The window for this threat is roughly 2 in the afternoon through 9 in the evening, and the reason this particular zone carries a tornado designation separate from the broader wind threat is the Lake Erie shoreline itself. Lake breezes along Lake Erie can create sharp boundaries, narrow lines where wind direction shifts abruptly. When those boundaries interact with an already unstable atmosphere, rotating thunderstorms can fire up very quickly. Discrete supercells along the Lake Erie shoreline in this kind of setup can produce tornadoes with less warning time than storms in the open plains, because they develop in a narrow corridor and move fast. Fort Wayne, Columbus, Cleveland, Akron, Buffalo. If you are in any of these cities between 2 and 9 o'clock today, be ready to act on a tornado warning without hesitation. The warning time in this environment can be shorter than you expect. Meanwhile, across the upper Midwest, in Wisconsin specifically, the ice storm and winter storm impacts that have been ongoing continue to cause problems. Power outages are active across central Wisconsin right now. The ice that has accumulated on trees and power lines is heavy, and when the additional moisture from today's system adds to what is already on those surfaces, more outages are possible. If you have family or friends in central Wisconsin who are without power right now, check in on them. Conditions are not improving quickly in that region, and the combination of ice, cold, and no power presents genuine safety risks for vulnerable people. Now, tomorrow, Sunday, the line of storms has pushed offshore by morning, but there is a trailing threat along the east coast that deserves attention. A marginal severe weather risk extends across the Carolinas and Virginia on Sunday morning and afternoon. Isolated wind and hail are possible from scattered thunderstorms ahead of a secondary trough moving through. This is not a major event. But for anyone in Charlotte, Raleigh, or the Virginia coast, keep your weather apps open Sunday morning. The threat is low-end but real. By Sunday evening, the system moves offshore, and then early next week delivers something that has been rare in recent weeks, a genuine break. Cool, stable air drops southward from Canada into the Midwest and Northeast on Monday and Tuesday. Temperatures fall back closer to seasonal norms. The active storm track quiets. The atmosphere takes a breath. For much of the country that has been dealing with one severe weather event after another for weeks, Monday and Tuesday offer a reset. But it is a short reset, and I want to walk you through why that matters. The West Coast is already developing the next setup. A large troughing pattern, a sustained dip in the jet stream, is building along the Pacific coast this weekend and into the beginning of next week. And when that trough deepens along the West Coast, it acts as a launching mechanism. It ejects storm systems eastward, over the Rockies, and into the plains. Energetic, fast-moving, loaded with the ingredients for severe weather. Here is why this West Coast trough is significant beyond just the next system. When a trough locks in along the Pacific coast and holds its position for several days, it does not send one storm. It sends a series of them. Each system rides the same atmospheric highway from the Pacific, over the Rockies, and into the central US. The result is what forecasters call a high-frequency severe weather pattern. Not one outbreak per week, but potentially 2 or 3 events within the same 7 to 10-day window. The mid-April period is showing exactly this kind of setup in the models right now. By Thursday of next week, the first of these systems arrives across the Central Plains. A severe weather risk is already being flagged, primarily wind and hail, with a lower-end tornado threat. This is not yet the main event. It is the opening salvo of what the models are consistently signaling will be a return to widespread organized severe weather by the weekend of April 9th through the 14th. Let me be clear about what mid-April is shaping up to look like. This is not vague, long-range speculation. Multiple models are in agreement that the period from roughly April 9th through the 14th will feature a highly active severe weather pattern across the Great Plains and Midwest. The specific details, exact timing, exact geographic focus, which days carry the highest risk, will sharpen over the coming days. But the broad signal is consistent enough that it should be on your radar right now. This is how severe weather seasons build. One active stretch, a brief pause, another active stretch, potentially larger and more organized than the one before. The mid-April setup has the ingredients to be the most significant event yet, if the atmosphere delivers on what the models are suggesting. There is also a temperature story that accompanies all of this, and it is worth a brief mention because of how it affects daily life across the region. Temperatures over the next 10 to 14 days will continue to swing significantly. Not extreme in either direction, not a major heatwave, not a record-breaking cold outbreak, but warm and cold oscillations of 15 to 20 degrees happening in short succession. Comfortable one day, jacket weather the next, back to comfortable the day after. This is the signature of a volatile jet stream that is actively reorganizing between storm systems. For anyone with agricultural operations, construction schedules, or outdoor events planned in the Midwest and Plains over the next 2 weeks, plan for variability. Morning temperatures and afternoon temperatures on the same day can differ dramatically as warm Gulf air and cool Canadian air trade places. Do not dress for one and expect the other. And one more thing I want to address before we close: the rain totals. The south-central United States, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, is already looking at a potential deluge of rain by Friday. This comes on top of the significant rainfall that has already fallen across this region over the past 2 weeks. The soil moisture in many of these areas is at or near saturation. Additional heavy rainfall events trigger flooding faster than they would on dry ground, and they push rivers higher with less water. The cumulative rainfall picture for this region through mid-April is significant, and flood-prone areas should not be treating any individual storm event in isolation. Here is your timeline before we close. Today, Mississippi Valley through Great Lakes. Squall line with 60 to 65 mile/hour winds tracking through Nashville, Memphis, Little Rock, and Shreveport through the afternoon. Lake Erie corridor from Fort Wayne through Columbus, Cleveland, and Buffalo. 2% tornado risk, active from 2 to 9 p.m. Be ready to act immediately on tornado warnings in this zone. Ice storm ongoing in central Wisconsin, power outages continuing. Sunday, Carolinas and Virginia, marginal severe weather risk, isolated wind and hail possible Sunday morning and afternoon before system moves offshore. Monday and Tuesday, genuine quiet period, cooler air from Canada, good days to recover and catch up before the next round. Thursday, first new system arrives across Central Plains, wind, hail, lower tornado risk. April 9th through 14th. Models consistently signaling a return to widespread, significant severe weather across the Great Plains and Midwest. Details will sharpen daily. Stay connected. South Central US through mid-April. Heavy rainfall totals continue adding up. Cumulative flood risk grows with each additional system. Monitor local water levels continuously. We'll be watching all of it. We'll see you in the next update.